Okay. Next thing you'll want to do is when you're taking apart the blade grips is you can go ahead and completely take off the fly bar. It's really simple. I'm not going to do it in this demonstration. To take off the fly bar, you would just loosen right on the fly bar cage these two set screws on what looks like fly bar weights. These are actually part of this fly bar cage. You would just unscrew those slightly to loosen them up. Take off one set of these fly bars. You don't need to take off both, just take off one set, unscrew slightly the fly bar weight and slide that off until you get one whole free side of fly bar, and you would slide it out. I'm not going to because my fly bar cage I've glued in. So I've glued at these points where the fly bar is, and I've glued the paddles down. But back onto the blade grips, you'll definitely want to pop these linkages off to get the blade grips out. So I'm going to use the same technique as I've done before. It's really easy. A pair of pliers, one needle nose pliers, one tip at the end of the ball, the other holding the back of the ball link joint or whatever, pops completely off. Then E-flite only applies one Allen wrench, but to work on the head it's best if you can get two. So for my demonstration purposes, I have a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench, and you could use on the other side the original Allen wrench that they give you. But you'll want to basically have an Allen wrench in both sides of inside the blade grip. There's a bolt, an Allen bolt. You'll want to slide that in both sides, have an Allen wrench on either side, and start to unscrew. And then I always look inside of the Allen where the bolt is to see which bolt is coming out, because either one can come out, the one from the bottom or the top. In my case, I'm lucky the one on the top's coming out. Okay, it's fully unscrewed. Now what you'll want to also note is, remember the order of everything you pull out from the head. Now it's all in the manual, but it's really small and hard to see. But it's easiest that when you start disassembling the blade grips, to remember the order of everything you've pulled out, because that's exactly how you're going to put it back in. The order is pretty easy. From the end of the blade grip, you're going to have your Allen bolt. Then you're going to have a washer with a thin hole. And then you're going to have another washer with a wider hole, because this is actually going to go around the spindle. This is going to go on the end of the spindle. Alright. Now I know there's other techniques out there to push a rod through. Like if you have a Blade 400 fly bar, you can thread it in there and push the whole rod through. I don't have that luxury. I just pull mine straight out, making sure there's no washers or shims on the blade grip. Blade grip has come off. And then on the inside here is a washer and 3 tiny shims. So you can pull those out, but I'm going to actually remove the other blade grip. I'm going to remove the ball links here so that you can see easier what I'm working with. So from on the other side, you can pull it out. Just be careful. I'm going to take this other ball link off on the pillar arm to make it easier to work with. Just be careful of the shims, because they're gonna fall down. All right. And then there's 3 shims here. Then along with the shims, you'll see the rubber dampener inside of the head. Mine need to get replaced soon, but that goes actually inside the plastic on the head. The rubber dampeners, they're inside the head. And that's how you remove your blade grips. So whenever they break, this is how you remove your blade grip. Remember, in the order of each blade grip, there's going to be the Allen screw, the screw, a washer for the screw, a washer for the spindle, and I'll show you that. See how this washer goes on the spindle and not on the screw. I don't know if you can see it in that video. There's one separated there. It actually goes on the spindle, and once that spindle is inside your blade grip actually has quite a few components inside of it as well. Your blade grip has two, I'm going to pull them out. Your blade grip actually has 3 of these bearings. 3 bearings. 2 will go on the inside of the blade grip, or the outside, depending on what you would call it. 2 would go on, well, this side of the blade grip. 1 goes on this side of the blade grip. And in between the 3 bearings is this bushing, or I don't know what they would call it, a collar. And that just basically, that bushing goes right in here, just like that. And then your 3rd bearing would go on the inside or outside, or whatever you'd call that. Now, one of the things you'll want to note when you're reassembling the head is obviously the way everything goes. These hiller arms, they'll get confusing when you install them. You can install them in backwards instead of forwards. Just make a note when you started taking it apart where these hiller arms, how they were oriented, so that when you put it back together, you put it back with the same orientation. As for the hiller arms, you can see right here, they're supposed to be in this orientation. Some people have flipped it around, but you know, for the way that it is stock, this main collective linkage should be straight and not at an angle. If it's at an angle, you know, like that, that's wrong. You should take it apart, or you can forcefully pop it back this way. So that linkage arm should always be straight. The one down below will be angled a little bit. Alright, I have the head back on. I'll show you how to pop the linkages back on. Just with a thumb and a finger, forcefully pop it back into the plastic. Don't force too hard, otherwise you could break that plastic ball off. Just wanted to show you a couple of things to note. You'll basically put the head back together exactly the way you took it apart, or sorry, in reverse. The other things you'll want to note, obviously, this retaining collar here should be, once the main gear is screwed on, should be flush with no play in the head. There shouldn't, the head should not move up and down, but it shouldn't be so tight that it's binding it. You should be able to spin it freely. Never tighten that bolt down below on the head, on the main gear itself. Never tighten it too tight. You will crack your main gear. I've done it. And those are the only things that I really think to make a note of once you put your head back together. One more thing to note. Whenever you're putting anything back together, for metal on metal, whenever you have a screw that goes into metal, don't forget Loctite. You're going to want to use Loctite. And the most important places is like anything with a set screw, you're going to want to put Loctite on. Otherwise that thing's going to slide if this little set screw vibrates out of place.